That's like a little dust in the wind.
Exactly. It's called Travis picking. People always say it sounds like dust in the wind.
Oh, wow.
That was called Travis picking, and it's a style of bluegrass finger style that they sort of popularized, you know.
Very nice.
Landslide is another example, and it's in C, which is the same key.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's the theme song. Hey, everybody, I got a special treat for you today. Listeners of the Noel Casler podcast, I got a holiday bonus issue episode with my man, Ethan Herschenfeld. Ethan and I go way back in the comedy scene. You know, we work the clubs together. It makes it sound like we both graduated to headlining Vegas, which is not the case. But, you know, we came out of the same kind of, you know, little group of comedians and had a lot of great nights together, trying to make people laugh. And Ethan always appealed to me because he's a very smart guy, as you're about to hear. He went to Harvard. He won't brag about that. I do every time. Ethan and I did a show in Cape Cod together this summer. And you were probably heading back to New York for a gig, but I was like, hey, you know, that guy went to Harvard. And if I went to Harvard, it would be the first thing out of my mouth. So I got to brag on my man. And, you know, we're going to catch up. He's doing a very important benefit on Tuesday night for the Georgia Safe and Strong Alliance or Inc. Or he'll let you give you the specifics.
Georgia Safe and Strong Inc., part of the Georgia Alliance Coalition, and it's happening through MVP. MVP is the Movement Voter Project. You can look them up. You go to movement.vote. So it's www.movement.vote. What it is we're raising funds to help Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock win in this runoff that's happening a week from Tuesday. So in 9 days is the runoff. Well, the voting's already started, of course. But we're doing the fundraiser exactly 1 week before the voting is finished, and it's going to be 7 p.m. on 7 p.m. Eastern. One of the dogs is making some noise on the yoga mat. So 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's a Zoom. We will make the invitation and the link available to you. And the cool thing about this event is it's not just going to be someone from MVP, Movement Voter Project, explaining what they're doing for the Georgia Alliance, but there will also be 3 very funny comedians. We're very excited to have Alonzo Bodden, who will be joining us live. You might know him from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is an NPR comedy show, that news quiz. He's on that a lot, and he's a headliner nationwide. He's an amazing comedian. Roy Wood Jr., who you might know from The Daily Show, who's one of the greats. His comedy specials, you can see him on Netflix and stuff like that. And then our third comedian,
Keith Price. Keith
Price, who you might know from Sirius XM.
Yeah.
Very funny. Also funny as a stand-up, but also as a host and commentator. Roy Wood Jr. will be either joining us live or through a pre-taped message, which he will be sending me tomorrow. So depending on his schedule, but he'll be part of the show. So that's what's happening. There's going to be laughs. The whole thing will take less than an hour. So you can pop in on Zoom anytime between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Tuesday night and throw in a little cash and get some laughs to help Reverend Senator Warnock, or Senator Reverend Warnock, defeat his challenger, the amazing football player, but underqualified opponent to be in the U.S. Senate.
To put it mildly.
Right. I was going to say, does one have to go into the details of why and how, and let us count the ways he's unqualified? And also, it makes a mockery of our system and of the Senate, the idea of putting someone in that chamber who really has such a long history of lying about his background and just having no qualifications at all for the job. So
look, yeah, let's get into that. First of all, the event sounds awesome. We'll put the link in the replies when I upload this onto YouTube. We'll put it right in the replies. I have the link and I'll put it in there. and pin it. But so everybody check it out. It's a great cause.
And if you don't find the link, just go to movement.vote. That's MVP's website, movement.vote, and it'll lead you to that, to the Tuesday night Georgia event.
Yeah, and those are great comedians, and you're performing too. You're hosting and stuff, right?
I'm hosting. I'm going to tell a few jokes, but mostly just get the thing going. We're keeping it very brief.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, because people get inundated with this stuff, and I did a benefit, as you know, this summer for Adam Schiff, and it was all these like top comedians and me, and I was like, how long am I doing? When I was back in New York, she's like, probably, 15 to 20. I was like, what? 15 to 20? There's like 10 like headliners, And when I got there, it was 10 minutes. Everybody got 10 minutes.
That was in LA, right?
That was in LA at the Improv in Hollywood.
Wow.
And the only guy who went over was Adam Schiff himself, who opened the show with a stand-up set, which was great. No joke. He could have he was just on the same level of, a lot of the shows that we've done and better in some cases,
I love it when a politician can actually bring that. Like Seth Meyers is always pointing out moments when Obama becomes stand-up comedy Obama.
Right.
He'll put the graphic of the brick wall behind him and put a mic in his hand.
Well, let's get into that, because that's in perfect like analogy, because the skill set carries over. Obviously, politics is very serious, but to be an effective politician means you need to be an effective communicator. And if your brain works on that level where you can read a room, connect with empathy, and find out where sort of the emotion is in something, and then use that as a tool, to convey your rhetoric more effectively, I find it's awesome. And I think anybody would agree, President Obama is probably the greatest speaker, orator in our lifetime. And a lot of the, since, in the modern age of politics, right? He's a throwback to these great speakers. And a lot of that is his ability to bring humor into the situation. Because as you know, you get people laughing, it's easier to deliver some truths. That's my whole set is, it all builds up to make these points about immigration and, racism and how bad Trump is and stuff.
Right, right. And also the commonality of a really good politician and really good comedian of being completely present to the exact moment. So something spontaneously occurs, and then that becomes a very rich moment for whatever the message is or whatever the joke is in the case of the comedian.
Well said. Yeah, improv and stuff, and also getting out of your own way, right? Because being totally present requires a bit of humility, right? You have to think like my preconceived ideas don't need to be superimposed on this situation. The thing I've already written, I shouldn't be so attached to. It shouldn't be so precious. Let me react to what life has given me, and honestly, and from my point of view. And well, you're an actor, so that was Meisner, right? I studied moment to moment. It's that helps in comedy.
I was thinking of a photo I saw of Beto O'Rourke talking to some guys who showed up at one of his rallies, packing all their guns. Right. And I didn't hear what was said, but even Beto O'Rourke's physical, his posture, it looked like he was handling it really well. He just looked, he was meeting them, hearing them out, and I guess in some way ignoring the fact that all these people are surrounding him with guns, which is a pretty aggressive message, but he seemed to be dealing with it okay.
Excellent point. And he had that classic moment. I don't know if it was in the same exchange where somebody laughed about a school shooting and he goes, "You think that's funny, mother effer?" You know what I mean? Right. And that kind of like gave him a big surge because he reacted like a human being. And,
exactly. Like a human. That is the key. That someone seems like a human. Getting back to Herschel Walker, who I guess he does seem human, but not like the kind of human you want to have. I couldn't believe it. There was that rant he did about warlocks and werewolves.
Yeah,
that was crazy. And then he had another one I saw recently. I don't know if it was about an animal or about a neighbor. He is really out there. He's on his own planet.
Yeah, I worked with him. He was on Celebrity Apprentice. He was on one of the seasons of Celebrity Apprentice. Yeah. And he got fired early on. He got fired, I think, like week 7 or something. And, he's punch drunk. Do you know what I'm saying? He's got CTE. I'm not a doctor, but it appears his brain is not functioning. And he wasn't like, probably the smartest guy to begin with. He lied about all his education and stuff.
Right.
And, even Trump fired him. You know what I mean? Back then. And his contest, like, because the show was like you do these contests and then your team would win that week. And his challenge that he got fired for as a team leader was to bake muffins. Like it was the contest to make baking cupcakes, right? and they forgot to put sugar when they were making it. They forgot to add sugar, so they didn't taste good. So they came up with the idea that after the fact, they would spread maple syrup over the muffin tops.
Okay.
And they served it like, and these people were pissed off. Like the company that like they were baking the cupcakes for were actually angry, and they fired Herschel. But you know, on a more serious note, for somebody like me who grew up around Black excellence, okay, I grew up, you know, my early years were outside of Washington, D.C. in PG County, in a neighborhood that was very, you know, multicultural and predominantly African American. And it was people that were sort of striving, they were getting graduate degrees at the University of Maryland. I grew up right in the shadow of that, you know, and anybody who's lived in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area knows there's just incredibly smart, you know, very well educated, very, you know, concerned and very, you know, expert in their fields, like demographic of people.
Right.
And if you grow up around that, you're so offended at the cynicism of the Republicans picking a guy that literally Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham have to sit on either side of for a Fox interview because they can't trust him to speak extemporaneously, not that he even knows how. You know, it's offensive to the idea of Black excellence in me as somebody who's a huge fan of it and whose life is better because of the teachers that I've had, you know, and the leadership. You know, we were talking about Obama, you know, we're in a country with Obama and you're running, you know, Herschel Walker, and I'll shut up in a minute. But the next thing about that is as soon as he loses, which he's gonna lose. We need all the help and donate the money because it's not, it shouldn't be as close as it is, right? But it's still close. The second he loses, Fox News is going to turn their back on him so quickly and demonize him. They'll roll out the same tropes that they apply to Black men, right? He's dangerous. They'll turn on him. They'll pretend like he conned them and he is really just another bad Black guy. I promise you the narrative will shift instantly the second he's no longer useful to them.
Well, I look forward to hearing that from Fox News in 10 days. Let us hope. Let us pray. No, I simply wanted to say that the politics aside, even if you agree with the policies that the Republican Party is espousing, it's still shameful, the idea that you would be willing to elect a guy who is just unqualified. So it makes a mockery of the system. Let me just say, oh, by the way, that's Loki in the corner. Loki is now, he turned 15 back in August.
Nice.
And he's hanging on, and he's glad to be joining us today, Loki. Okay. I just wanted to plug the event one more time. So please join us on the 29th of November, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, on Zoom. You will be treated. The other person who's involved in this event, let me mention again, is Roy Wood Jr., incredible comedian. You might know him from The Daily Show. Alonzo Bodden, incredible comedian. You might know him from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, or his headlining around the country. And our third comedian.
Oh, Richard Price. He was throwing it to me. Keith Price,
who you will know from Sirius XM, from his stand-up. Very funny trio of comedians. But the other guy who's involved, who's co-hosting with me, is a guy named Barry Lynn. I don't know if you know Barry Lynn, but I met him through the David Feldman Show, which is a podcast I've been doing for a few years. He's a regular guest there. And Barry Lynn he's an author. He was a crusader for the separation of church and state. Okay. So he's a pundit. He's been on the airways. He's the Reverend Barry Lynn.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a Reverend. Yeah.
Yeah, another Reverend, and we're doing the event for the Reverend Warnock. So the Reverend Barry Lynn, very funny guy, very smart, and so it's a great group of people. And so please join us at 7 p.m. The whole event will last less than 1 hour. That's on Tuesday night, November 29th, 7 p.m. Please join us on Zoom. And even if you can't, go to movement.vote. Noel will post the link, and please make a donation. However small, however large, even $1 makes a difference. Some people are asking like, well, isn't it too close to the election for it to matter? That's why MVP, movement.vote, is giving the money this time directly to Georgia Alliance. So whatever money we raise in this event is going directly to these Georgia-based groups that are getting people to the polls. So it's MVP's whole approach is to find grassroots organizations around the country and work with them, because they work directly with the voters, get them to the polls, get the vote out. And they were very instrumental 2 years ago in helping Warnock and Ossoff win the runoff then. And it's a great organization, movement.vote MVP. And yeah, please join us.
Yeah. And those comedians, everything Ethan just said is incredibly important. We need Warnock back in the Senate, right? We need that little bit of cushion. So,
right.
Get out
less clout for Manchin and Cinema.
Well,
so we have that one more vote. Those guys will have a little less sway.
100%. It'll neutralize the chaos agents. And listeners to this podcast, I mean, I've done whole episodes on those guys. They're bad actors. Manchin is a Koch brothers employee at this point. And they're also both very narcissistic. So it'll save us the drama of them trying to hold up an infrastructure bill or God forbid, an assault weapons ban, which Biden is going to try and do, and which we desperately need in this country. And you'll probably be entertained watching this thing, because there's very few comedians. Most people don't know this. I'm not the biggest fan of comedy, Ethan. I'm honest with my audience. It's not my art form. I came to it from other avenues because I felt like I had something to say, and it was the best medium to say it. I love being funny. I love making people laugh. But my point is, as I'm sure we see a lot of comedians. If you're a comedian, you see a lot of other comedians, and that's good. It's good for you. There's very few comedians who have bits that will stay with me that I remember. And Alonzo Bodden has a bit where he talks about he comes from a generation where there was dumbasses, and if you didn't know anything, you wouldn't say anything. Two smart guys were talking, and you're like, I'm just going to sit this one out, bro. And they'd be like, how come you ain't saying anything? Because I don't know shit, man. I'm going to listen this time, And it points to a truth, right? Because the internet made everybody an expert on everything. Everybody feels like they have to comment on every little thing that they don't know anything about. And it harkened back to that time. And of course,
that's great.
Right? It's a great bit. And Roy Wood Jr. is a legend. I mean, he makes me laugh every single time. And he's very smart on The Daily Show. But his stand-up, I've seen sets of his in Philly. He does a bit about like green juices at the club and stuff. You know what I mean? How it's like, $12 for a green juice. I won't do his whole bit, but it's hilarious. And
I saw him in a tiny club here doing a set where he was really working it out. I was so impressed by him. It was a show here in Brooklyn about 8 years ago. And what I loved about him is he was such a pro. He was working out new material. It wasn't landing really hard, but he was really sticking with it, just patiently. You could feel him crafting it, and you could see that it was going to end up being killer. And the audience loved him because he's so charismatic and so likable. So even when he's working something out, you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, which is,
great artist.
Which is, yeah, exactly. That's the real key of comedians. If you would just show up and listen to them talk, you know what I mean? And that they have the sort of respect for the audience to do that. Because people who don't do it don't understand. It takes a lot of guts to get up there and say something that you pretty much know is not going to work. Because comedy is you have to craft it. It doesn't come out the way it ends up. You have to realize, it's too many words. It's too confusing. That you're basically playing these beats underneath, the words, and you're trying to. It's a process of removing, trimming the fat.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of the game is just getting rid of all the gristle.
Exactly. Which is the trick is there's only one way to do that. You can only do that walking that tightrope in front of an audience. You can say it at home and write it at home and rewrite it. You never know what you have until you get on your feet with it. And
I recommend anyone who doesn't know Roy Wood Jr. Well, Alonzo Bodden also, but go on Netflix, watch any of Roy Wood Jr.'s stand-up specials. The other great thing about him is he has a very particular voice. I don't just mean a voice as a writer and a point of view. I mean his actual voice, a great vocal quality, just very funny.
Yeah.
So that's Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom to help get Reverend Senator Warnock another term, and send Herschel Walker packing.
Yeah, we need to get that guy out of here. We had some more time. We got another about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Let's talk about the intersection of comedy and politics, because
Mhm.
I don't know if you know this, I got invited to the White House in October.
Really?
Yeah, I got invited they got in touch with me and like some other progressive people on Twitter that sort
That's
of,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
have the same kind of like, we're aligned, with wanting Biden to succeed. I'll put it that way. So they
Right.
reached out and a phone call, and then they started looping me in on these emails. They're basically, they wanted to make available the same things that mainstream media gets. That somebody from MSNBC or Time Magazine is covering the White House. They get printouts, they get bullet points, they get communication from the White House staff. They wanted to loop a certain amount of Twitter people in on that. I was lucky enough to be one of them. I was actually recording this podcast and I got a call in the middle of it and I said, this is the White House, I got to take this. And it was like, I think my listeners thought I was kidding. And then on Friday, I ended up at the White House and posted pictures. So
wait, so you were there, so it happened.
Oh yeah, no, I went down, dude. Listen to this, dude.
That's amazing.
They invite us down. We get like a 45-minute like tour of the White House where we get to run around and do whatever we want and they let me take selfies in the press room. Like I was like, is this real? And then we went in for a briefing, and I can't talk about like the contents of that briefing because it was off the record, but our visit wasn't. But they basically, and I'll talk about it anyway, they basically just looped us in. They had all the department heads come in and tell us, what their achievements were.
So sort of talking points that can then drip into comedy as well. That's it.
Right. And allowing us to use our skills to sort of not co-opt our narrative, but to, the truth wasn't getting out, right? The NRA and the Republicans and all these guys are so good at sort of waging cultural warfare and convincing their followers that like they have their best interests at heart. Nothing, bless you, nothing could be further from the truth, right? I went through Pennsylvania after this happened. So I spent a full day at the White House. I get armed with all the jobs numbers and the, cutting the deficit in half and all these legitimate things that Biden has done that somehow wasn't being portrayed in the media, right? The media was saying it's going to be a red wave, it's going to be a bloodbath, and we were like, no, it's not. We're going to get the youth out to vote. We're going to get these tight races like in Georgia 1, and we're going to continue this progress. So we had this full day of meetings, and then I went basically on the road and was doing little videos in Pennsylvania, where we won, right? We're sending John Fetterman there instead of Dr. Oz, somebody as goofy as Herschel Walker and as much as a carpetbagger and a chaos agent, and a Trump pick. So it was very interesting, though, when I got these talking points, and what I saw and began to see in places like Pennsylvania is these guys would show up at a new construction site, right, with a brand new pickup truck, breaking ground on a brand new project that's part of the infrastructure bill, which, by the way, had a lot of like economic equality built into it, right? You couldn't get these federal funds unless you hired a certain amount of minority labor, right? It wasn't just going to go to the white guy who owned the construction company and hired his cousin Vito and everybody else. I don't know why I said Vito. Irish guys do construction too. But I'm going to get canceled by the end of this. But anyway, my point is they'd be there, but then they'd have like, a Let's Go Brandon sticker and an AR-15 sticker in their windshield, on the back of their pickup truck. And I'd be like, your new pickup truck, right? The fact that you're going to work, the fact that everybody's vaccinated enough to be out in the world again and not hiding from the latest surge is all due to Biden, right? But you think MAGA's got your back because they're appealing to you in this cultural way, right? Trump's not giving you that new construction project. He was running the economy into the ground and the deficit up, into the stratosphere. But they appeal to these cultural things. These guys in the suburbs and exurbs that believe this stuff, that watch Fox News. And I do believe we were able to change the narrative and get the youth out and at least get the mainstream media to stop reporting so much on the red wave and to start acknowledging there was a lot of enthusiasm, right, in the Democratic Party. Because it became clear we were protecting democracy, right? That was the main thing that came out of these meetings. And I was on these war room calls every day thereafter. It's like so for 2 weeks, I was on a 12 noon call. Nancy Pelosi would join the call some days. Like it was very inspiring. And it was enlightening to see how much messaging is at the heart of all this, right? Because the facts stand for themselves. Biden has a great record. If this was baseball, you'd be like, the guy's batting 500. You know what I mean? The guy's like doing great. You know, I don't even know anything about baseball. His ERA is great, or whatever you call it. You know,
he has many touchdowns.
Right,
many
exactly. Right. But you know, I'm like the least sports, literate guy. But my point is, you know, on paper, he is doing a great job, right?
Yeah.
But it was the messaging, and I think, you know, comedy is very effective in that, as we discussed at the top of the show. Like, you break it down for people. And I'll shut up in a minute, but here's an example. Like, I got a printout from the White House recently on these stats. And one of them was that, you know, Pete Buttigieg, at the, you know, Secretary of Transportation through Biden's administration, got $600 million refunded to people who had bought tickets during the COVID lockdown in 2020. And you know, the flight was canceled, the vacation to Hawaii, and the airline never gave them back their money. This happened to so many Americans that it was over $500 million of money,
oh my God.
you know, that the airlines were sitting on. Pete Buttigieg got it back. Biden got it back. Like, do you think Trump would have gotten you a refund?
Right.
You know what I mean? You think Trump would have been going after your money to make sure? No, he would have said, hey, give me half of that. You keep it forever.
And we'll keep it quiet. Absolutely. That's a really good point. Yeah. So should I mention the event one more time?
Yeah, I'll put it in the thing. I mean,
okay, we'll put it in the thing. Okay. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Please join us on Zoom to support Reverend Senator Warnock in his runoff to
yeah, and tell them about what you're doing. Tell them about
your So I wanted to say, before we go, so I'm an actor, and like Noel said, we've done a lot of comedy together. I had the pleasure of opening for you at a show in Cape Cod back in August, and going back in New York, we did a lot of shows. I'm also an actor. I do a lot of TV, and I had a really good, after the pandemic was really slow, I then had a really good last, let's say, 1 year. I shot a lot of different stuff. So a lot of the stuff that I'm in is going to be coming out soon. Some stuff on HBO Max. There's a show called Beloved on HBO Max. There's a movie with Samuel Jackson and Uma Thurman called The Kill Room. Wow. I have a little thing in that. Anyway, you can look me up. Ethan Herschenfeld is my name. Look me up. You can see what's coming down the pike on the little screen and a little bit on the big screen. Yeah. But I do want to plug my book. I have a book which is part of the most interesting project possibly. Here, let me go get it. I'll leave you with it.
I'll tell the audience about my friend Ethan. He's been on Boardwalk Empire.
I'm getting my book.
Right. He's got a comedy special where he talks about all the roles because he got typecast, you know, because you can see he's a very, you know, for those that are listening and not watching on YouTube, he's got a stern look. He looks like a heavy, you know, not like a bad guy, but he's got a lot of gravitas. So he ends up getting cast in roles that are sort of like either a gangster, you know, or, you know, tough guy. You look at him, look at the guy, you know what I mean? Today is Now.
Today is Now is the book. This is the book that's me on the cover, but the pseudonym is Dr. Samuel Benjamin. What happened was this friend of mine, Ari Kagan, who's a director, a very funny guy. You might know him on YouTube. He has some very funny videos, including some sneaker videos. Look up Ari Kagan, very funny guy. So he's directing me in this mockumentary where I play a therapist and a guru named Dr. Samuel Benjamin. And Ari had the great idea. He said, wouldn't it be good if Dr. Benjamin had a book? So I wrote the book. So this is on Amazon. You can get it. The book is called Today Is Now. The film is also called Today Is Now. It's a mockumentary. It's going to be coming out soon. We're editing it now. And it's a book it's 108 life-changing pages. It's very important wisdom from a fake therapist, guru, and life coach played by me. It's called Today Is Now. I recommend it. It's guaranteed to change your life. It's guaranteed to change your life by $12 if you get the hardcover, and it will change your life by $6 if you get the paperback.
Wow, it's a bargain too. It's a good holiday gift, guys. If you
it's a very good holiday gift. Among the most important nuggets of wisdom, there's a lot in here, but I'll just share one of my favorites. Dr. Benjamin says, they say look both ways before you cross the street, but I say look a third way. Look inside and ask yourself, do I really need to cross the street? Maybe things are fine right here on this side of the street. You never know. You might get hit by a car if you cross the street. So that's the sort of wisdom available to
That's
you.
hilarious.
There it is. There's Dr. Benjamin with one of our dogs.
I love that.
Anyhow, today is now.
That's awesome. Today is now, folks. You got to get it, man.
Yeah.
You're always doing
and-
interesting stuff. You know, that's what it's all about, you know?
That's what it's all about. Lots of auditions, and occasionally I book them. And meanwhile, I'm writing some jokes.
Did you see Stutz by any chance? Stutz? I don't know if I'm saying it right.
I loved it.
I loved
I
it.
loved it.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
I was like, as somebody who's been in therapy a lot myself, has done a lot of work on myself for a long time. I couldn't get up out of bed in the morning without the tools in my toolbox, folks.
Right.
And these guys know that. I'm pretty open about my life on here. He was hitting some key points. I mean, that was the real stuff. If I can't think of anybody who wouldn't benefit from watching that, right? Even right?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It's Jonah Hill directing a documentary about his relationship with his own therapist named Phil Stutz, and the guy's very charismatic. He's interesting. He has his own approach to things. It reminded me somewhat of some of the stuff that we've done in our mockumentary.
That's why I said it, because I was watching and I'm like, this is like Ethan's thing, you know? Yeah,
the problem with like taking a long time while you're editing or shooting something. Meanwhile, some other stuff comes out and people are like, wait a minute.
I know. And then my buddy's on a show that does a similar character. Michael Chernus plays a self-help guru on this Apple show that was very popular.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Severance.
Severance, exactly. Sorry.
He was great in that. Similarly, my book was already out when that show came out.
I know.
And I was like, oh God.
I know. Everybody's gonna be like, oh, like Rickon or whatever. He's a good friend of mine. He and his wife live in our town and stuff.
He's great.
I know. He's always good, and he's a very sweet, nice guy. And
I know him. I know him from that series that they shot in Chicago. That thing that takes place in Chicago.
I love that when he was like the swinger wife and stuff. Yeah. He was on a show called Patriot too, like this American thing where he played this like ambassador who's into the Beastie Boys. He always has these memorable characters going back to Orange is the New Black. He went to Juilliard.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's a good move. Good move. Go to Juilliard.
I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, which is a big deal, and I'm proud of it. And my grandmother had gone there with Grace Kelly, so I had no choice when I was studying acting. Most of my listeners don't even know that my background is acting. That's what I went to school for and trained in. And when I met you, you know, that's what I loved most about stand-up is I got on stage and I was trying to learn the new modality. And I'd done, you know, a lot of improv. I studied some stuff at UCB and I did improv, you know, in the 90s. But, you know, everyone's like, stand-up is different. Stand-up is different. And of course it is because you're writing the material. But once it connected with me early on, and you gave me some great advice. You helped me a lot. You know, I was stepping on my laughs, lowering the microphone. Once I applied the technical notes and then realized, oh, this is like a monologue. Like my job is to be present and in the moment. And if I play moment to the moment, you know, with the audience, it'll at the very least be honest, you know, and if I strive for truthfulness, that's all I can really do, right? You can't control whether people laugh. It's never my end game anyway. My goal is to like get people to think, you know, that like if I got 5 minutes, this is what I really want you to hear and take with you on the way home. Cause this is, you know, we're in, you know, tough times as everybody knows. So,
you know, I just want to pick up on what you said about truthfulness. That is the name of the game. It's the name of the game in the TV acting thing. All the auditions are about, they're looking and saying, is this guy believable in the role? That's the whole game. In stand-up comedy, it's the same thing. The audience has a 100% sniff test for someone bullshitting. Even if the joke or the story is not true, it has to have that feeling of this is a real person up there giving me some truth. So, and then I want to just bring that back. If it's a little bit tortured, but I'm going to bring it back to Georgia, to the runoff. You have two candidates in the runoff coming up next Tuesday. One of them clearly is a man of truth. He's a man of truth who has worked and he has served both in Ebenezer Baptist Church and in the Senate. And the other one is a man who is not a man of truth. Right. He has his talents, he has his skills, but telling the truth is not one of them. So who do we want representing us? Let's keep this about truth. So that's the last word of truth I'll give you.
Hey, that's an excellent point. We'll wrap up here in a minute, but what more could you say? I mean, that truth is what sets you free, right? Truth is what we were plagued with or a lack of truth, right? The last administration, mendacity was their thing, right? It was lying. Trump had lied 20,000 times by 2020 or something. That's toxic, right? But alternative facts are toxic. Truth is the only thing that can sort of elevate us as a people. Learning the truth, right? The Republican Party now wants to reinvent education. In Florida, they don't want to teach the truth and the real history of the United States. They want to whitewash it to continue to hold power, and a minority holding power, right? The white sort of Christian male demographic is shrinking. And the only way they can hold on to power is to cheat and to lie. And that's the Georgia election is a perfect example of that. The guy doesn't even live in Georgia. He lives in Dallas. He filed his income taxes last year. He claimed his residence as Dallas. That is actually in violation of the law. Mark Elias, a great Democratic lawyer, just discovered this the other day. It's, he's not even legally on the ballot. So talk about a lie. The whole thing is a fraud. And they're just hoping enough white guys vote for him because they're racist, And
let's talk about that covering up the truth also. It just makes me think Trump doesn't want to release his tax returns.
100%.
That's been a long fight. The Republicans in the House want to shut down the January 6th committee. They don't want to find the truth. The Republicans in Congress have fought for years to prevent research from being done on gun violence, to actually prevent the knowledge that could then inform your opinion. They want to prevent the statistics and the research from seeing the light of day. So let's vote for the truth. Yeah, that's a good
point.
Message.
They blocked the CDC from keeping records of mass shootings and gun deaths because it should be registered just like you drink aspartame, it gives you cancer, so I'm drinking Tab or whatever. Tab is a throwback for my listeners, half of them. Fresca, Team Fresca. But no, it's so true. It all boils down to the truth. And just like in comedy, like you just said, Ethan, you want who that guy is on the street walking out on the stage. You can tell when it's an act, and it's all heightened reality. That's what entertainment and drama is. But you want the essence of who that person is. That's what you're going to relate to. And the GOP doesn't want you to see the essence of who these people are, right? They didn't want you to see Trump's tax return because all his money comes from Russia, because he sells cash apartments in Trump Tower to Russian oligarchs that are ripping off their own people and funneling the cash to, New York and South Florida. I'm going to start ranting now, so I'll stop. But we couldn't have said it better. This is about the truth. This is the season of lights, right? We're coming into a time of year where it's very dark, right? It gets dark, right? It gets dark early, baby. It gets dark early. That's why we light a candle. That's why we put up Christmas lights. We're trying to raise the light out of the darkness. And that's what this election is about, right? Sending a good man who spent his life serving people. He's a reverend. He's a soft-spoken, intellectual guy who intimately knows the issues of the people he's representing and cares about equality and justice for all citizens of Georgia. The other guy, Herschel Walker, will, if God forbid he was sent to the Senate, he will be first of all, he'll be replaced. My theory on that is they're using him as a placeholder. They'll get him into office and they'll be like, hey, Herschel, we found 10 more babies that you got to leave now, and we're going to replace you with, the last guy, the Purdue. We're going to bring David Perdue back or something. And you can't say anything about it. Just quietly go off now. Because here's the thing. In Georgia, the governor gets to pick a replacement. Governor Kemp gets to pick the replacement if a senator has to leave, not another runoff. So that alone is reason to get out and vote for Warnock.
Wow. All right, man. Noel, I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of your fans. I really appreciate you letting me come on and promote the Tuesday evening Zoom, 7 p.m. Eastern. Please join us. And I appreciate you letting me plug my book. Today is Now. See the movie when it comes out soon. Today is Now. And God bless. And
thank you, brother.
God bless America.
Thanks. Have a great holiday. I'm sure I'll talk to you. My listeners, check out my Substack. It's Sunday. I write a Substack every Sunday. I do a few a week, but Sunday is my big edition. So if you guys are listening, I'm heading off to write it now and then hopefully edit it and catch most of the typos. I didn't go to Harvard. I'm not like you, Ethan,
I'll just share. Here was my my joke my joke of the day. I want to become a Zen master. so that I can have a lot of Zen servants.
Nice.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Amen.
Exactly. Well,
All right.
thank you, brother. I hope you had a good holiday. You down there in the Cape, it looks like, right?
No, this is Brooklyn. This is Brooklyn with all the doggies. And yeah,
God, you got a nice house. Look at all those books.
yeah, all these books.
You need to
I've
get
read-
on Room Raider. You would do well on Room Raider with the dogs and the books.
Oh, I'll check that out. Room Raider. Thanks.
It was this thing on Twitter where they ranked.
Oh, right.
They put out a book. I was in their book, actually. They put
wow.
out a coffee table book, and I was in
Well,
it. I'm a 10 out of 10 because of this fireplace.
I was thinking it was Raider, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's Rate the Room. It's like
Right.
Rate My Room. Like Rate,
Right.
yeah, nice.
Yeah, Room Raider. Yeah, exactly.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Thank
Peace.
you.
See you soon.
You
Thanks
got
a
it.
million.
Here, I'm just going to
Okay.
stop. Thank you. See you guys. I'll have a regular episode out later this week. Talk to you then. Be safe.